Deep in the decaying woods of Black Vale, people whispered of the Weaver, a creature older than the trees themselves. The Weaver thrived on human skin, shifting in its own Weaver form. It's a predator of dreams, a butcher of the unconscious. But the true terror lays within its helpers, tiny, spiny creatures known as skin crawlers. The skin crawlers were no longer than a rat, with claws like needles and gaping mouths that hissed a strange melody. They burrowed into the flesh as you slept, traveling into your brain, turning your thoughts into their home. When the Weaver marked you, the skin crawlers came first. Sophie had always dismissed the Black Veil rumors as superstition, even when her friends started vanishing. But it became harder to deny after a night spent in the woods for a drunken dare. She returned home with scratches she did not remember getting, and the distinct sensation of something shifting beneath her skin. At first it was subtle, a persistent itch at the base of her skull, shadows that seemed to ripple, just out of sight. But by the second night, Sophie couldn't sleep. Every time her eyes closed, she saw the Weaver. It was a towering mass of decaying bones and stolen flesh, its hollow sockets glowing with a deep, pulsating red. Its arms were impossibly long, its fingertips with claws that scraped along the walls of her mind. In the dream, it reached for her, pulling her closer to its nest of decaying bodies, skinless, eyeless husks that screamed soundlessly. She woke gasping, clawing at her own arms. Her skin felt loose, like it didn't belong to her anymore. And by the third day, she started hearing them. The skin crawlers whispered as they moved inside of her. Tiny voices giggled and scratched, describing the Weaver's plans for her. "You're next," one of the voices echoed. "Your skin is so soft, he'll love it." So desperate, Sophie tried to cut them out. She slashed at her arms and thighs, hoping to catch one. But the skin crawlers were too fast. They laughed at her cruelly, diving deeper into her flesh. By the fifth night, Sophie knew it was her undoing. The Weaver thrived in the mind, and she could feel herself slipping. Exhaustion wrapped around her like a shroud. And when she finally succumbed, the Weaver was waiting. It drug her from the roots of her mind into his lair, the walls pulsating with a sickening, fleshy rhythm, and the air was thick with the scent of rot. The Weaver leaned in close, his breath like burning acid. "You've been ripened," he whispered. His voice growled. "Now give me your skin." Sophie screamed as the Weaver began its work. Its claws peeled her flesh slowly, savoring every strip. The skin crawlers swarmed her exposed muscles, their legs sinking into her brain like roots. When Sophie's neighbor found her body, it was a hollow shell. Her skin was gone, her eyes wide open and bloodshot. Inside of her skull, tiny creatures scuttled, gnawing at what little remained. The Weaver had claimed another, and somewhere in Black Vale, it waited, its hunger never ending, its skin crawlers ready to inflict the next dreamer.